Hey guys, this is going to be my review on the Blackvue DR750LW-2 channel. So this is Blackvue's first full HD plus full HD 2-channel system. So that means the front and rear camera is full HD. Now this camera also has a 4-inch touchscreen, so it's not as discreet as their previous models like the DR650 or 550 or the 1-channel versions of those. But some people do actually want an LCD screen on their camera, so this is for those type of customers. It seems like this was designed with the Korean market in mind because, for one, it's not all black. It's mostly black, but there is a gray or silver color around the lens, and with a big 4-inch touchscreen, it's not exactly hidden in your car either. But let's take a look what's inside the box first. Now both the DR650 and the new DR3500 had a more simple box, but this one went back to a more complex, fancy looking box with a clear window in the front. So Blackvue, as usual, is manufactured by Petasoft in Korea. So there you can see this one is the 16GB model. That means it just comes with a 16GB micro SD card inside. And in Blackvue fashion, it usually comes installed inside the camera. So when we open it up, there's a clear plastic piece right in the front. Now you'll notice that this rear camera is pretty much the exact same camera as the DR650. I'm not sure if it's any different. It looks exactly the same. I would assume that its ability to record 1080p is in the main camera's hardware and not the actual rear camera. Here is the main camera. So it's pretty big, but it was actually smaller than I was expecting. Again, that's a 4-inch touchscreen. There's me smiling for the camera. So overall, the build quality seems really nice. I've always liked the quality of the Blackvue cameras. It's pretty light, but it doesn't feel cheap either. So there you can see it's where the micro SD card goes. And there it is inside. So you can see the Wi-Fi and GPS light there. And the mount is adjustable. So let's take a look what's inside the rest of the box. Pretty standard. There's some extra 3M adhesives, some cable clips, a micro SD card reader. Here is the power cord for the 12-volt socket. Here's the manual and the cable for the rear camera, which I've really always loved Blackvue's cables because they're very thin. So the manual has multiple languages. That was just a quick start guide, actually. Full manual is pretty detailed. As usual, I'm not going to actually go through any of this unless it's really important. So now let's take a look at the camera. What I really like about this mount is it's removable. So it clicks in and then there's a little tab you pull to release it. So only that small plastic piece goes to your windshield. So on your windshield it's pretty low profile compared to the actual DR650 or 550 and similar models, at least when it's removed. And the rear camera is just like the previous Blackvue 2-channel systems. So like I said before, I really like these cables because they're really thin. The other 2-channel cameras I've had have had much thicker cables, and that's not something I really would prefer to install. So I'm going to go ahead and start connecting some of this. Now we're going to actually plug it in and start it up. One thing I've always liked about the Blackvue cameras is the voice alerts. Pretty much all of the high-end Korean models have voice alerts now.
Initializing the SD card.
And one trend that a lot of companies seem to be following is using the Metro style Windows 8 look with the big tiles, and you'll see that pretty quickly.
Blackvue for your safe driving. Starting normal recording.
So that was the normal startup audio alert. I really like that because every time I start my car I know it's going to give me an alert that it's turning on or switching from parking mode. So here you can see the default is a picture-in-picture. There's a button on the center left to turn off the screen, an emergency button to lock a file, and here you can see the display lets you select displaying different views, such as if you want the rear camera to be the main screen or if you want the picture-in-picture. Here you can see the Wi-Fi on or off toggle, then mic on or off also.
Wi-Fi off. Audio recording disabled.
That's useful if you want some privacy in your conversations. Speaker on or off, which I would leave on personally, just because I like the alerts. Now here you can go through your files, and as you can see I'm already getting some files saved. Now when you're viewing files, it's not actually recording. Here you can see I'm just cycling through a few of the options. Now I'm going to get back to the recorded clips later once we have more footage. But let's go to the settings. So here you can change the brightness, how long the screen is on, and the touch revision option, which I assume is just to calibrate it. You got the time settings and date. Here's the video settings for resolution and brightness. If you buy this camera, you're more than likely going to want to use full HD front and back. So here you can set the parking and normal mode settings. I never really mess with these a whole lot, but the motion sensing or G sensor settings are in here. I typically do turn the normal mode sensors off, or at least very low. Now the audio settings, this is just to adjust the volume of the alarms or how loud your recordings are. Here you can set whether or not you want the speed or the date and time displayed on your recordings. Also the parking mode auto switch, or how long you want your files to be. I typically use a shorter setting if possible. So here's some system settings. There you can see the default password is just Blackvue. Here you can see the firmware, time zone. And this actually does have a voltage cutoff function built in, but you do need to hardwire it. I find it a little strange because Blackvue just sells the PowerMagic Pro, which has that built in anyways. But you can set how long it goes on. So there you can see a format utility for the SD card, and that's pretty much everything in the menu. So it goes back to recording. So now let's go back to the video clips. Here you can see there's a normal, event, and parking button on the top. Event is basically if there's a G-force or shock, it'll save that as an event. The assumption is if you get into an accident, it'll mark that clip as important because it sensed the sudden shock. But it is also very sensitive, so even potholes will set it off, which is why usually during normal recording I lower the G-sensor settings. Here you can see you can filter the front or back video clips. Now the other option was parking mode on the top right. So if you have it hardwired and it's recording while your car is off or parked, anytime something sets off the motion sensor, it'll record it as a parking video. So here you can see a couple LED lights. I showed them before, but this doesn't actually have a built-in GPS, so that is one of the big downfalls of this camera. It's unfortunate because it's pretty pricey, and the other pricey Blackvues have built-in GPS. So there you can see where the GPS would plug in if you buy the optional accessory. A lot of people don't even like using GPS though, so it gives you the option. So here you can see it's inside my car next to my DR750. It's not huge, but it is a lot taller, so it hangs a little lower than their typical cylinder cameras. But like I said, I really like how easy it is to pull on and off. So let's go ahead and plug it in. Now this is just a demonstration, so I don't have it wired up through my roof liner like I normally would. Now, even though the DR650 is a lot slimmer, when you are in your driver's seat, it doesn't actually obstruct your view at all. So it is small enough to not get in your view, and that is important for some people. But it is big enough that if someone broke into your car, they're likely going to see it. And it does look like a GPS unit, so that might be a target for theft. So on the outside you can see the silver or gray lens area is visible, which I didn't like. But there you can see it's the one on the right. The reflections made it a little hard to see, but so let's take a look at some video clips from the camera. Now I think it's good enough quality, but the bitrate is pretty low. It's actually lower than the DR650. I believe the 650 has about 8 megabits per second in the front camera, where this has only about 7 megabits per second on the front camera. So that's pretty low, especially considering a lot of other cheaper cameras have 12 to 15 megabits. But this is pretty much a trade-off for having full HD in the rear camera. Both cameras do still have 30 frames per second while recording in normal mode though, so that's pretty nice because I know the new Lucas Wi-Fi model, which I'm currently testing also, has full HD front and back, but the rear camera is only 24 frames per second, and it is actually a little noticeable. A lot of people will say the Blackvue camera's bitrate is too low, but in most situations I think it's very acceptable. I think most people will be more than satisfied with the video quality. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue to show some clips from different situations. Some of you may notice this intersection from my Inav review where I compared all three cameras at this same intersection. And here's that same area with a rear camera. Now it is a little offset because I had three cameras in the back. And I've always had quite a lot of trouble with the reflection in my rear window, but that's going to vary with your car or the lighting conditions. Overall, I'm really satisfied with the rear video quality. It's definitely better than the rear video in my DR750, but I do use my 550's front camera in the back now. Now, one really nice feature about the Blackvue camera line, including this one and their other models, is their parking mode. So if you hardwire it with a PowerMagic Pro or a backup battery like the T-Power Plus or Cell Link B, it'll actually continue to stay on while your car is off, and say you're in a parking lot. If someone backs up into your car and hits your car, it's going to start recording, but not only start recording once the impact happens, it actually buffers the video so you'll get 5 seconds before the impact. Now a lot of the cheaper Chinese cameras don't have that feature. That's pretty much mostly the Korean brands. The only downside is it is pretty draining on your battery. So if you live in a cold climate and you want to use parking mode, during the winter you might want to consider having a uninterruptible power supply like the T-Power Plus or Cell Link B. Now I did test the parking mode with this camera, but I don't have any footage to show because I did actually uninstall the camera and take the wiring down and I lost that footage. But I'll include a link on the video to one of my recent videos where I actually captured a T-bone accident with my DR550 in my rear window, and that was actually set off by the motion sensor. Now you'll notice in that video there's actually a lot of cars driving by, so if you use a motion sensor and you park in a big city or urban area, you're likely going to be recording almost non-stop. So that is something to take into account. So next, let's take a look at some of the night footage. I think this camera seems to perform pretty well at night. One issue I've had with a lot of cheaper cameras is all of the lights will have ridiculous bloom around the light. It's just like every light will be glowing. Where here it seems like the lights, such as the Cub Food sign up ahead or the street lights, there's a little bit of bloom, but overall they're pretty well defined, and it's not distracting from any other details in the video. It seems like the rear camera has a little bit more bloom though, as you can tell in this clip. Like that street light on the top right has quite a lot of bloom effect going on there, but that also might be because of my rear window seems to be fogging up a little bit. But even the rear camera performs pretty well at night. Now in a lot of areas where there's a lot of shopping and car dealerships, it seems to look really great. But you can see on this stretch there's not a whole lot of street lights, so the road is pretty dark. I don't have the best headlights either. Pretty sure I actually got some middle of the road light bulbs last time I replaced my bulbs. But any well lit area you should be okay. And overall this camera definitely performs, I would say, above average at night. And when I say above average, I am testing cameras anywhere from $50 to $300. So this camera is definitely on the higher price range. So it should be expected that it's going to have decent night footage. Now here you can see the rear camera definitely in certain areas can look completely dark, but again, during night footage it's always going to be hard to get perfect video. But overall, I would give this a pretty good score. Now it is worth noting that the rear camera only has about 3.9 megabits per second, but it is full HD also, so that does make up for the low bit rate at least. You can argue that the DR650 has a higher bit rate on the rear camera, but it's also 720p only, and I personally think that even 1080p at a lower bit rate still looks better than the DR650's rear camera. But the front camera has a lower bit rate than the DR650's front camera, so there are some trade-offs if you want full HD front and back. You have other options like the Panorama X2, which personally I have not actually tested, but I have watched a lot of clips and read into that camera quite a bit, and generally Panorama seems to have some of the best quality out there for video. So if you do want a 2-channel system and you do want an LCD screen, I would definitely compare the Panorama X2 and see what kind of features that has versus this one, because design-wise and form factor-wise they're very similar. Now if you want something more discreet, I would personally recommend the DR650 over this one, because without the screen and the cylinder design, it's a lot harder to see inside of your car. Now there were a couple features I didn't go over, and the first one is the Blackvue viewing software, which you can get with any of the Blackvue cameras, or you can just download from their website. I've covered it in previous videos, including my reviews of the 550 and 650, so I'd go check out those videos if you want to see anything about the viewing software. Also the Wi-Fi app, I didn't use it this time because I just used the screen on the camera and I just took the memory card out when I wanted to copy a file over, but the Wi-Fi app can be pretty useful. It's available for iOS or Android, and you can send backup files basically to your smartphone and you don't even have to take the memory card out, so that's a pretty useful feature. So check out that app if you are interested. Overall, I do like this camera. I'm not personally going to use this as my main camera because I value the discrete design of the DR650 a lot. The LCD screen isn't preferably something I would like, but it's a personal preference, and I think it can be very useful to some people. In the end, the biggest downfall of this camera is going to be just like any other Blackvue camera, and that's the bit rate. The bit rate is pretty low, and even the DR650's front camera has a higher bit rate. But like I usually say, I think with a 1080p camera, around 6 to 8 megabits per second sounds really low, but you just got to watch the footage for yourself and decide whether or not you think it's good enough. I would go ahead and compare the video footage from this camera and the video footage from my review on the Mini 0806 camera, which has a 1296p mode and also a cinema mode that's almost 1440p but with black bars on the top and bottom. So you can see what a better video quality and higher resolution looks like and see if you think that jump in quality is actually worth it. So that's my review of the Blackvue DR750LW-2 channel. If you like this video or my other videos, I always appreciate if you hit like and subscribe. And as always, drive safe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.